Like the title suggests, my friend has been acting weird since we went camping, but today it got a lot worse. To understand, we need to go back to the beginning. We're in our senior year of high school. We live in Portland, Oregon, so we figure for spring break, let's get out of the city and spend some quality time together camping in the wilderness. Something you need to have a concept of beforehand is my friend Kane is a very up person. He's energetic, and he's almost always happy, rarely seen him angry. He's a kind guy who wants to spread kindness, so when I tell you this story, keep that in mind. This all started 3 days ago on the last night of our camping trip. That day I told Kane I was hearing some weird noises in the woods. Birds calling would morph into wolves howling without intermission. When presented with this, Kane said, "Sean, you're just paranoid. You're so used to buses honking and cars' tires screeching, you're overthinking the forest noises." "I don't know, man, it's just freaking me out, that's all." Kane put his hand on my shoulder and gave me the most genuine grin you could ever see. "Calm down, man, we're fine, it's just me and you out here, let's have some fun." That day we went fishing at a river on the mountain we were camping on. We ended up swimming too, but the water was ice cold, so that didn't last long. Kane caught an 8-inch bass, which we ended up cooking for dinner over a fire along with some canned green beans. I had brought a small dinner, but damn, did it feel good to catch your own food, or in this case have your friend do it. After dinner we retired to our own tents and winded down for bed. While I reached for my overhead lantern, I heard footsteps. They were light like a coyote's or something that size. They were slow and they circled our campsite. At first I wanted to reach for the zipper of my tent, but my primal instincts told me that was a bad idea. The footsteps circled until they became closer and heavier. Suddenly, I heard the zip of Kane's tent. My attempt to whisper came out as a sort of yell whisper. "Kane, what the fuck are you doing?" "Checking it out, dipshit, what do you mean?" "But it could be a wolf or something." "I got my deer knife." "Chill out, you wuss, I'll be fine." It was then I noticed the initial footsteps had ended. It was completely silent, no crickets, birds, nothing. Like every forest animal was anticipating a predator. I heard Kane's footsteps circle the site before departing from hearing range. As I heard his footsteps trail off, a sickening, tightening feeling in my stomach occurred. I waited anxiously until I heard footsteps in the distance. Immediately, I hopped out of my tent, and in the distance I saw Kane's outline in the shadows, but as he approached I saw his clothes were torn and dirty. A cut went from the center of his chest off to the side. "Holy shit, Kane, what happened?" He just stared at me with the most empty look I've ever seen in anyone's eyes. "Kane." My voice went soft and cracked. He could probably tell I was nervous, but he still said nothing. "This isn't funny." "Night," he said immediately, and then retreated to his tent. I couldn't sleep that night. In the morning we packed up all our camping equipment. I noticed Kane had thrown his bloodied clothes out to the woods and changed. Weirdly though, he was wearing his swim trunks, but I could still see his boxers, so I knew he wasn't planning on swimming. Well, I didn't at the time. I was too stupid to see the obvious signs that something wasn't right. When we got back into town, he got lost trying to find my house, to the point where I drove because he couldn't even understand how to follow Google Maps or his left from right. Kane would never get mixed up like that, much less forget his left from right. We got back to the house and my mom had prepared us some food. Kane refused to eat it. We tried offering something else, but he wouldn't eat anything we had to give him. Then when I tried to get him to play video games with me, he got confused and angry. He ended up throwing my spare controller and breaking it. Then when I got distracted, I caught him staring into my younger sister's room. When I yelled at him about it, he said, "I wanted to know what she does when no one is watching." I got way too freaked out. I told him he should probably go home. I probably should have told someone about the signs. I should have told my mom he was watching my sister. I should have done something before we got to this point. I have to go to bed, so I'll leave you off at the end of day 1. Oh, we left off where I told him to go home. If you haven't read part 1, please read that before continuing. That night I contemplated telling my mom or his mom, but who would believe me? Oh, my friend is acting weird and he's probably a skinwalker or something. For the record, I've never held any faith in the supernatural or anything religious. I know little to nothing about that kind of stuff besides the baseline info you see on the internet. All I know is they can turn into animals and sometimes even people. I think whatever was out there that night killed Cain and crawled into his body or took the form of his body. Whatever happened, that's not Cain. After that night, I knew that. I woke up in the middle of the night. There was a dog viciously barking outside my house, and when I looked outside, I could see someone walking away. I think it was Cain. The next day, I didn't really hear from him. I spent all day hanging out at the house and even invited my girlfriend Kim over. We watched a horror movie and helped my sister with a science project since her spring break wasn't as long as ours. In the middle of us all building a model of the solar system, there was a knock at the door. I got up to answer it and was surprised to see Cain's dad standing at my door. "Hey Joshua, Cain isn't here." "What's up?" He had this intense look on his face like he was about to bite his lip off. "Fuck, sorry." He spoke frantically. "He's really not here?" I stepped outside on the front porch and closed the front door. "What's going on?" Cain kept leaving and coming back home last night. When his mom confronted him about it, he didn't say a word. "Yeah, he was acting. That's not it, Sean." She got mad and raised her voice a bit, as she tends to do when she's frustrated. And he turned around and smacked her down to the ground. I looked at my friend's dad and felt the desire to vomit everywhere. I wanted to tell him what happened, that I didn't know what was going on, but something was wrong with his son. I had no idea what to say. Anything I could piece together would sound insane. I looked at him, grim written all over my face. "I'm so sorry. If there's anything we can do, let us know." He looked at me like he knew I was hiding something, but he simply nodded and walked back to his car. When I walked inside, I felt like fainting. What the fuck was wrong with Cain? He would never hit his mom. They had their struggles, but he loved her more than anyone. I stepped inside my sister's room and that's when I saw it. A squirrel sat outside the window, perching with its beady black eyes darting around the room, but when it locked eyes with me, it didn't flinch. My heart skipped a beat before I came rushing at the window, banging at it. It maintained eye contact. When my girlfriend and sister looked over, it finally ran off and I felt insane. "Babe, what are you doing? Why would you scare a squirrel like that?" Not able to come up with a rational explanation, I said the first thing to come to mind. It was acting weird." "What?" My girlfriend raised her eyebrow at me. "I thought it might have rabies or something." It was dismissed, and we finished up my sister's project. That's when I got another knock at my door. This time it was Cain. "Hey. I just saw your dad. What happened with your mom?" "Who?" My gut tightened all over again. "Right. It's late. You should get home." Can I stay here? Why? Can't go home. At the speed he responded, it was like he was on drugs. I couldn't stand to see my friend like this. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe something happened in the woods and he's changed, and he needs someone to talk to. Maybe I can help him. I guess so. Kim ended up heading out when he arrived because the sun was going down. I gave her a kiss on the cheek and squeezed her hand tight before she left. Me and Kane were in my room. I got distracted on my phone as usual, but when I looked up at him, he was staring out past the hallway into the kitchen, watching my mom. Both times. My mother and sister, it seemed like he didn't have perverted or malicious intent. It was like he was studying them. Hey, Kane. He didn't say anything but turned his head and fixed his gaze on me. What happened in the woods when we were camping? He looked irritated at the subject being brought up. Don't want to talk about it. Kane, it seems like something bad happened and maybe you should talk about it. For a split second, he gave me a look that made it feel like my friend was back. A look that rationalized the concern I had for him and was ready to talk about it. But then his face returned back to the empty, callous, soulless husk of what used to be my friend. Kane. Quiet. The sudden increase in his volume made me jump. Then my mom appeared in the doorway. That was the only time I've seen him smile since we got back. He turned around and cheerfully said to my mother, "Yeah, just a dumb argument. Sorry for raising my voice." That's when I realized he wasn't talking like Kane would. He was talking like I do, using my mannerisms and tone, specifically the tone I use when speaking to my mother. This shook me to my very core. My mother smiled. Okay, be nice to each other. You guys have been friends since you were kids. She walked back into the kitchen and Kane locked eyes with me. Dude, what the fuck is wrong with you lately? He just stared at me. I hated this. I wanted to help my friend so desperately. Kane, please talk to me. I want to help you. They're going to find out. What? What are you talking about? They all know. You know. I didn't respond, and we both went silent. At the time, I didn't know what he meant, but now I wish I didn't. I wish I never went camping with him. He sat with us for dinner but didn't eat anything. We all talked about our days while he just watched. Anytime my mom asked him something, he smiled and responded. Anytime her focus wasn't on him, he just stared at all of us, watching the way we ate, the way we talked, the way we got upset. That night I knew I was not staying the night with my troubled friend. I knew whatever was in my house was a danger to me and my family, but I couldn't do anything. I couldn't fight him. I couldn't tell anyone. So we laid down for bed, and I ignored it and went to sleep. I slept peacefully as you could. My dreams were filled with the estranged themes that have popped up in my life. When I woke up in a panicked sweat, I was met with Kane's eyes soullessly staring into mine, but it wasn't like he was looking at me. It was like he was looking into me. What the fuck are you doing? Trying to I don't know, figure it out. Kane, what the fuck is wrong with you? Nothing. I couldn't help it. Tears started falling from my eyes. This isn't you. What are you? What do you want? I can't play Kane for long. The smile that stretched across this stranger's face was so disturbing and freakishly inhumane my brain couldn't even process what was happening. Anymore. Please get out. Like that, he just left. When I looked out my window, I didn't even see him walking away. The things he was saying weren't making sense. Why the fuck would something take my friend, not even attempt to pretend to be him, and now it's stalking me and my family? I couldn't fit the puzzle pieces together, but I knew it was solemnly up to me. Tomorrow, I can catch you up the rest of the way. I have to prepare for what is coming. I'm sure now, it has to be a skinwalker. Or a changeling. Something that takes people and wears them like masks. Everything I found online points to this. All the weird stuff at the campsite, the way Kane's been acting, it all fits. It all fucking fits. I can't sleep anymore because I know what this means for Kane. He's gone. Really gone. I've spent hours desperately searching for answers, clicking through endless forums and websites until my eyes burned from the blue light. There was this one thing, this tiny sliver of hope about a Navajo healer who might be able to help, but who am I kidding? Once they take your face, it's gone forever. And hell, maybe I'm wrong about everything. Maybe it's not even a skinwalker. The internet's full of lies and I'm losing my mind trying to separate truth from fiction. I don't know what to do anymore. Kane's gone. Back to the story, you know how in part 1, I said shit had gotten a lot worse. Yeah, let me catch you up the rest of the way. Kane had left last night. That's when I went on my internet frenzy of collecting information. I still can't figure out what it wants with my family. This is a long shot. It seems as if whatever entity or force took my friend's face was completely unprepared for the complexity of human relationships and the myriad of connections that come with it. As time passed by, more and more people began to notice the oddities surrounding my friend's disappearance. Whatever it may be, quickly became aware of the growing suspicions surrounding his behavior. Initially, I believe it was merely trying to learn the nature of human life, perhaps learning how to mimic emotions and social cues in order to fit in. But now it has shifted its focus. Now, I can't shake the feeling that it's on the hunt once more, seeking its next victim, its next face to wear like a mask. The uncertainty is what chills me to the bone. Will it target Kane's family? Or perhaps my own family, who remain blissfully unaware? The thought of it preying on an innocent stranger is equally disturbing. The possibilities are endless. What had me as stumped is what drives a creature to abandon the wilderness. Perhaps the shadows of the forest no longer satisfied its hunger. Hunger can drive animals to odd things. That morning, desperation drove me to some questionable choices. I found myself following instructions from the darkest corners of the internet, stumbling around my house with burning sage like some cut-rate exorcist. I even caught myself browsing sketchy websites for silver bullets, and when you're seriously considering buying ammunition from someone called Wolfslayer 420, you know you've hit rock bottom. Kim noticed something was wrong before I even worked up the courage to tell her. During our phone call that afternoon, while the bitter smell of sage still hung in the air, her voice carried that edge of worry I'd been dreading. "You're not yourself," she said. I tried to play it cool, brush it off with a laugh, but you can only pretend for so long that your world isn't unraveling. The truth kept clawing its way up my throat, demanding to be heard. I hesitated, my voice barely above a whisper. "Kim, I need to tell you something. It's going to sound crazy, but I think something's seriously wrong with Kane." The words tumbled out, a mix of fear and desperation. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and for a moment, I wondered if she was still there. "What do you mean?" Her tone mirrored the turmoil brewing inside me. I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts. "I don't know, exactly. But ever since we went camping, he's been different. He's been stalking my family, watching me, saying things that don't make any sense." My voice cracked as I forced out the words. "Kim, I think he wants to hurt me." The silence that followed was oppressive, weighing heavily on my chest. And then, a soft laugh drifted through the phone, sending a chill down my spine. It started as a gentle, amused sound, but quickly escalated into a maniacal chuckle that made my blood run cold. "Sean, don't be silly. Everything is perfectly fine." My heart sank, a sense of unease creeping over me. "This wasn't the Kim I knew. Why are you acting like this?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're the one acting weird, Sean," she shot back, her tone dripping with malice. "Not me." I felt a shiver run down my spine. This wasn't Kim. It couldn't be. "Kim, this isn't you," I said, trying to reason with her. "Did Kane do something to you?" "Sean, everything will click soon." I didn't hesitate. I hung up the phone, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Who could I trust now? If my own girlfriend was under some kind of mind control, how long would it take for whatever was terrorizing me to claim everyone I loved? I dove deeper into my research, desperate for answers. That's when I stumbled upon more legends of skinwalkers, witches in animal clothing, with the power to manipulate minds and take on human form. I was in over my head, but I had no choice. I had to stop this before it was too late. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside, made me jump. I felt like I was being watched, always. The birds perched on the power line outside my window seemed to be staring at me, their beady eyes boring into my skin. Even my neighbor's dog, once a friendly companion, now seemed sinister, its gaze following me wherever I went. I didn't know how to escape this hell I was trapped in. I was losing my grip on reality, and there was no one to turn to. I tried calling Joshua multiple times, but he didn't answer. A creeping sense of dread whispered in my ear that maybe Kane had already struck, that maybe it had taken one of their faces, and maybe it was already too late. I tried calling Kane, but he didn't pick up either. The silence was deafening, and my mind was racing with even more worst-case scenarios. And then, a message from Diane's phone. Kane's mom. "Hi Sean," my heart skipped a beat as I hesitated, unsure how to respond. "Diane? What's up?" "Haha, Diane." I tried again. Haha, I knew then that my worst fears had come true. "Kane." I typed, but the text said "read" below it, and no reply was sent. The silence was yet again oppressive, a heavy weight that crushed my chest again. I knew that Kane had taken his mom's face, that Kane and Diane were probably dead. With no chance of returning, I collapsed onto my bed, knees pressed to my chest, and my face buried in my hands. The tears flowed like a river, and I wept for what felt like hours. I was losing control of my life, and I knew it. The thought of being helpless, of being unable to save my friend, his family, or even myself, was suffocating. As I sat there, consumed by despair, I realized that these logs were my last hope. If anyone ever saw this, I wanted them to know the truth. Don't go camping. If you do, bring sage, a silver bullet, and some gall, because that's what it'll take to survive whatever is happening to me. I took a deep breath, wiped away my tears, and steeled myself for what was to come. I would do more research, try to find a way to stop this, no matter how slim the chances. And then, my phone rang. Joshua. He didn't say why, but he told me to come to the house immediately. My heart skipped a beat as I hesitated, unsure if I could trust him. But I knew I had to take the risk. I snuck into my mom's room and grabbed the gun she thought we didn't know about, hidden in her underwear drawer. It wasn't a silver bullet, but it was better than nothing. At least, if something happened, I'd be prepared. I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of trepidation wash over me. What was waiting for me at Joshua's house? Was it a trap, or a chance to finally uncover the truth? I didn't know, but I was ready to face whatever was coming my way. I'm writing this as I'm on my way to Joshua's house, my heart racing with every passing mile. I have no idea what to expect. But I know it can't be good. I'll write more after whatever happens, but for now, I'm praying to whatever God is listening to keep me safe. I'll need it. Oh God, this is so much worse than I thought. I had just arrived at Joshua's house, and my mind is reeling. There are 5 cop cars parked outside, and I can feel a sense of dread creeping over me. I got out of my truck, and that's when Joshua came charging at me like a linebacker, tackling me to the ground. I felt my head hit the concrete, and a searing pain shot through my skull, like a migraine mixed with blunt force trauma. As I struggled to catch my breath, Joshua screamed at me. His face twisted in rage. What the fuck happened to Kane? What do you know, you little shit? Spit flew from his mouth, hitting me in the face, and I felt a wave of fear wash over me. The police officers rushed over, pulling Joshua off me. But not before he landed a few more blows. Mr. Dunham, calm down, one of them shouted, but Joshua was beyond reason. You know something you're not telling me. You see what he did to my Diane. What did you do to my son? I couldn't focus on the pounding in my head, not with Joshua's anger and fear radiating towards me like a palpable force. He was right, of course. It was my fault. I didn't stop Kane from going into those woods, and I didn't tell anyone when he started acting strange. Now it's too late, and I'm left to face the consequences. As I looked up, I saw Diane, laid out on the living room floor. She looked peaceful, like she was finally at rest, but that illusion was shattered when I saw the hole in her chest. It was a ragged, brutal wound, with bits of flesh scattered everywhere. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, and I vomited all over the side of the road. The cops picked me up, checking me for a concussion, but I couldn't take my eyes off Diane's body. This was a crime scene, a scene of horror, and I was right in the middle of it. The police asked me if I knew anything, but I hesitated, unsure of what to say. I wanted to tell them everything, but I knew I'd sound crazy. Maybe Kane had already gotten to them, too. They asked me if I wanted to press charges against Joshua, but I shook my head. No, that's really not necessary. He's just a hurt husband and father. As I walked up to the car where they'd put Joshua, a cop stuck her head out the window. Might not be a great idea, champ. He's not well, but I had to try. I looked at Joshua, who seemed broken, confused, and scared. I could relate to that. Look, Joshua, if I did know anything, I would tell you or the police, I said, trying to reassure him. But he just looked at me, his eyes filled with anger and suspicion. You know why Kane hasn't been acting right. I hesitated, unsure of what to say, but then someone shouted from near the house, Officer Gillis, get over here. The cop rushed out of the car. Leaving me alone with Joshua, that's when I broke, telling him everything. Look, after we went camping, Kane hasn't been right. I think whatever came back wasn't Kane. I'm so sorry, Joshua. I really didn't know this would happen. Joshua's face twisted in rage, and he spat at me. Fuck you. I've lost my wife, and that's all you can give me? My son is some mythical creature. I knew I had to get out of there, fast. You're the only one I can trust, Joshua. I'm going to fix this. I promise. I started walking back towards my truck, but the cops stopped me, telling me I couldn't drive. I had to walk home, feeling like I was being watched, like Cain was already closing in. I'm writing this as I'm sprinting back to my house, my heart racing with every step. I see a crow following me, its black eyes watching me, and I know I'm not being paranoid. Every time I slow down, the bird slows down, and every time I stop, it lands and caws at me, like it's taunting me. I just made it into the house, barricading the windows and door with every piece of furniture I could find. I'm standing facing the door, waiting for whatever is coming next. I can hear a light pitter-patter trail from the front of the porch to the front door, and I know I'm running out of time. I barricaded the windows as best I could, and the door with every piece of furniture I could. Luckily my mom was at work and my sister was at school, so they were safe and didn't have to watch me go into a psychotic episode. I stood facing the door for what felt like hours, although it was probably only 10 minutes, until I heard a light pitter-patter trail from the front of the porch to the front door. A shadow materialized, Cain's silhouette. But my mother's voice drifted through the door, sweet as honey and wrong as a nightmare. Sweetie, I'm home early from work. Let me in. The doorknob rattled, each tiny movement like thunder in my ears. That's not you, Mom. The words barely made it past my lips, each syllable trembling with the fear coursing through my veins. Don't be ridiculous, honey. Your sister's right here with me. A pause, then, come on, you idiot, open up. My sister's voice chirped, the familiar sound twisted into something that made my skin crawl. Hot tears carved paths down my cheeks, each drop hitting the floor like a gunshot in the silence. My throat closed up as panic clawed its way through my chest. Get the hell away! You're not real. Then Kim's voice joined the chorus, but it was wrong, too deep, like someone trying to speak through mud. Let us in, you moron. We're freezing out here. Cut the act, Cain. It's middle of summer, you piece of shit. Just leave. The voices merged into something ancient and terrible, a sound that shouldn't exist in our world. My stomach heaved as this thing, this demon, screamed through my door. Open the goddamn door, Sean. You're making your sister cry, Sean. I'm sick of these stupid games you keep playing. Terror crashed over me like a tidal wave, drowning out everything else. My body began to shut down, not in the usual fight or flight way, but something deeper and more primal. Like some deprived part of my brain decided playing dead was the only option left. But in my gut, I knew that wouldn't save me from what waited on the other side of that door. I pulled the gun out I had tucked in the back lining of my jeans. The figure was banging at the door to the point where it almost tore the hinges out of the wood, and the doorknob shook so violently the screws fell out until it dropped, leaving a hole in the middle of the door. I watched as Cain slowly bent down and peered his empty eye through the hole to look directly at me. That's when, without thinking about it for a second, I flicked the safety off the gun, held it up and shot at the door 4 times before lowering the gun. I heard the thud of his body outside the door. I sighed in relief as I went up to the window, pulling back the dresser that covered it, and peeked outside to see Cain was nowhere to be found. I knew I hit him because I could see liquid all over the porch, but it wasn't blood. It was more like a disgusting black sludge with the viscosity of honey. That's when I saw a bird coming straight for the window. I tried to push the dresser in front of the window, but it was too late. Kane had already crashed through the window. I couldn't look away as Kane, or whatever had possessed Kane, began to change. The transformation was like watching every horror movie I'd ever seen, compressed into 30 seconds. His feathers thinned and melted away, each one dissolving like candle wax as his body stretched and swelled to human size. The worst part was the sound, the wet snap of wings twisting into arms, bones crackling like kindling in a fire as they forced themselves into new positions. When the teeth burst through his beak, they didn't just appear. They ripped through like nails through rubber, bringing waves of thick, black ooze that dripped between them. By the time it was over, and everything looked normal again, I'd forgotten how to breathe. We were standing there in the middle of my living room. This is when I had stupid trivial thoughts run through my head like, why did I never go back to check the campsite? Why did I not even try to reach out or find a Navajo healer? Did I care that little about my friend, or about my family? But there he was, the creature that stole my friend's face and used it to kill his own mother and terrorize my loved ones. Why? Why would you do this? I stammered. The being that had once been my friend Kane let out a low, menacing chuckle. The sound sent shivers down my spine, and I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. It wasn't even trying to mimic Kane's voice anymore. Instead, it spoke in a strained, raspy tone. Lived 100 years, 100 life forms, 100 places. I took a step back, my mind reeling. Okay, why come here then? Nowhere else to go. What do you mean? The being's eyes seemed to bore into my soul. My people, they were coming. Hungry. I had nowhere to run until he showed up. I knew exactly what it was talking about. You mean on our camping trip? The being just stared at me, its empty eyes seeming to suck the life out of me. And then, in a voice that was perfectly eerily Kane's, it said, "Goodbye, Sean." For a second, I thought it was really Kane, that somehow he had managed to break through the creature's control and was saying his final goodbye. What happened next is almost too horrific to describe. I'm not sure I can even type it out, but I have to try. I have to make sure that someone knows the truth. He began throwing up that black sludge everywhere. The first drop hit my floor like tar, viscous, and darker than midnight. Then my friend's body convulsed, and everything went to hell. His mouth stretched impossibly wide, a black waterfall of putrid sludge cascading out, bringing with it a stench that made me think of rotting corpses left in summer heat. The liquid spread across my hardwood floors like living oil, seeking corners, creeping under furniture. That's when I heard it. The wet crack of bones shifting beneath skin. His rib cage moved like something was pushing out from inside, each snap echoing through my living room like gunshots. The bones didn't just break, they exploded outward. Each new puncture weeping that same dark filth. The thing that used to be my friend sat there, a human colander dripping corruption, while my living room transformed into a lake of that same corruption. The bile rose before I could stop it, my stomach turning inside out as I struggled to make sense of what I was seeing. Maybe it was the concussion, or what was before my very eyes. From the ragged holes in his chest, pale fingers emerged like pale worms after rain, but these weren't burrowing down, they were reaching out. They curled around the edges of his flesh, and then came the sound. I'd torn paper all my life, but this was different. Vet. Wrong. The sound of skin giving way was like wet leather being slowly shredded, each horrible tear punctuated by a sound I can only describe as a sick, wet pop. The fingers worked methodically, clumsily, like a child opening a Christmas present in the dark. Only this gift was my friend's chest being peeled open like a blooming flower made of meat. The scene before me defied reality itself. Cain's body split open like a molting insect, but what emerged wasn't some creature or beast. No, it far much worse. A figure crawled out, leaving behind Cain's empty flesh like a discarded coat. My heart stopped. Standing there, dripping with dark sludge that seemed to evaporate into nothing, was me. Every detail was perfect. The same clothes, the same slightly disheveled hair, even the small scuff on my left shoe. Death would have been a mercy compared to this moment. I'd thought that since this entire thing began, but now, staring into my own eyes from across the room, I knew it with crushing certainty. "Everything's going to be okay," he said calmly to me, in my voice, perfectly. There was no deviation or falter. This creature had perfectly become me. I didn't even know if I was myself anymore. I made a beeline for my room. Everything I own is pressed against my bedroom door. My dresser, my desk, even my mattress. But I can hear the wood starting to splinter, and I know it's not enough. It was never going to be enough. Cain's words still echoed in my head. None of this made sense. I couldn't save Cain. I couldn't save his mom. I couldn't save his dad from his descent into madness. I failed them all. Mom, Shelley, I'm writing this for you. I love you. I'm sorry I couldn't stop this. God, I'm so sorry. And Kim, if you're still you, if that thing hasn't gotten to you yet, I need you to know something. That fight we had, when you said I was losing it. You were right. I just wish I'd been wrong. My hands are shaking as I type this, but you all need to know. Stay out of the woods. When you hear those sounds, those impossible sounds, run. And watch your friends. Watch them closely. Because if they change, it happens fast. One moment they're themselves, and the next, well, it's something wearing their skin. The door frame is giving way. The hinges are tearing from the wall. I can hear it breathing on the other side. If you're reading this, if you ever meet someone calling himself Sean H. Leroy, that's not me. But by then, it's probably already too late for you. The door's splitting down the middle now. May God help us all. Because nothing else can.